My grandfather, who again, Orthodox Jewish man, very religious, saw me starting to stray from temple and Hebrew school and not being interested in my bar mitzvah. And believe it or not, when I was 13, I actually was not bar mitzvahed. I wasn't prepared. And my grandfather was very disappointed. At the same time, my brother was kind of going down the same path, and he became an atheist way earlier than I did. But we were both heading the same path. He completely dropped out of Hebrew school, wanted nothing to do with it. And for me, I felt tremendous guilt. My grandfather came to me, and this is after he had a stroke, and he said, "I just want to see my grandson get bar mitzvahed." And I went back and actually hired a cantor at that time to help prepare me to read from the Torah and be bar mitzvahed. And I went through lessons, private lessons with him for several months. And I was bar mitzvahed, and I was 15 at the time. And I remember my grandfather sitting there, ear to ear grin, so proud, so happy for me. And I felt good. I felt pride for doing that for him. But again, there was zero connection for me. I didn't feel anything while I was up there. I didn't feel God. And if anything, I think the guilt tore me further away, where I didn't understand if he was feeling this way and he saw God in such a way and I did not, there had to have been something wrong with me. Anything else, like you, perfect example, the road. When you drive away from something, it gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And I think that you have years of him getting smaller and smaller, until the point he was just non-existent for me. And this was probably right around the time I was maybe 17 years old, where if I was going to label it, I would have been an atheist at that point. There was no thought of God. I don't believe that God really existed at that point. I don't know if it was ever a full thing. There might be a little nudge still in me, but for the most part, it was about as distant away as possible. I had driven down that road for miles. When I looked back, I couldn't see even a speck. So from that point, I had always struggled in school. I was dyslexic. I struggled. So trying to get into college was very difficult. When I finally got into college, my grades were some of the worst I think I've ever heard anybody say. I mean, I just really couldn't get myself together in school, and decided that that was no longer for me. And then went away to the military. And I said, I need to grow up. I just felt like this was a moment of immaturity and I needed to grow up quickly. And I felt like the military was that point to grow up in. And I think that's the second time that Jesus nudged me a little bit, because when you're in the military and you go through stressful situations, um, a lot of people turn to God. There are a lot of very religious people in the military, leaning on the hope and protection of God. And I went to Jewish studies there. I felt stressed and I said, I'm going to go to Jewish studies. And I felt nothing. Exactly as I was as a kid. There was zero there. And I said, man, I still need this, but I'm not getting this here. And I went to church and I went to a Sunday service in the military. And I remember actually saying, okay, I'm going to do all the things you're supposed to do. And I got down on my knees and I prayed. And I actually felt a little better there than I did at Jewish services. And I think it was the second time that Jesus kind of nudged me and just said, hey, take note, there's a little something here. They hand you a Bible when you go into the military, and it's called a bulletproof Bible. It's only about that big, and you put it in your shirt pocket. And the reason it's called bulletproof are there stories of military personnel being shot, and they live because the bullet goes into the Bible and not into their heart. So they handed me this bulletproof Bible and I put it in my shirt lapel pocket, and that was my protection. And I felt all the things I thought you're supposed to feel. And then the moment my military time was done, that was it. There was no God. It was right back to, no, I'm an atheist. There really wasn't any. It was just me trying to feel peace myself. And it was me all along. And I tricked my brain into thinking something happened and I'm okay. And I moved from the military to actually professional fighting and open up a martial arts school. I had learned combat in the military. I'd taken some martial arts growing up and I became a professional fighter. And if you're ever going to feel more pride and empowerment, it's professional fighting. It was all me. There was no, I'm the one training, I'm the one fighting, I'm the one in the ring, I'm the one. It's all I, full of pride. And that's what I felt, is just this overwhelming sense of me. And then whatever speck was left on the road was completely gone. There really was no God. I had moved so far away from believing in any type of entity that there wasn't even the God of the Jewish people. It was, there is nobody. It's just the world and science and nature and me. My atheist brother accepted Jesus, married the daughter of a Baptist minister, and went to church, and still to this day is all in for Jesus, just on fire for Jesus. It was the most bizarre series of events that to me seemingly happened within a month worth of time. And I couldn't understand it. And to this day, I don't know if I'll ever fully understand how God works and why he did all of that. But still at that time, I rejected God. I was like, well, my mom was dying, so she needed to hang on to something. And my brother, he needed to hang on to something as well, and fell in love with somebody that just happened to be the daughter of a Baptist minister. And I put it as very situational. And I still know I'm still the one who knows, and you guys are crazy. And that's really how I lived. For man, it probably was another 6 years. All of a sudden, I literally woke up one day, and I don't know why. And I looked at my wife and I said, I think I want to go to church. And she was like, what are you talking about? And I said, I think I want to go to church. And you should know that my wife, and again, I wasn't religious, I didn't care who I married, was an Irish Catholic. And she goes, what do you mean you're going to go to church? And I said, I just feel like I woke up and I feel like there's a tug. I need to go to church. So
Did your wife practice her
Um,
Catholicism? Or?
she no, she doesn't go to Catholic mass. She was not a practicing, yeah, Catholic. And so I looked up what local churches were by my house, and I found one that was a couple blocks away. I didn't even know where they were. That was how far away I was from ever thinking about this. And
Well,
I
and can I
go
just
go for it.
interrupt you
Yeah,
for a
yeah.
moment because I'm still like curious why the sudden desire to go? I mean, was it a dream? Was it just something you've been thinking about? I mean, what do you think? I know you were nudged. It sounds like you
Yeah.
were nudged.
It was, yeah,
But
it was a nudge in a way that there was no dream of, hey, you need to go here. And there was no active searching before then. I literally woke up, and I have to imagine that, obviously people get nudged in different ways. God just put it on my brain. You need to go to church. And I didn't hear a voice. There wasn't, thunder outside. It was just, I woke up out of the blue and said, I need to go to church. I'm sure a lot of people had this experience, but God spoke to me. And man, through that pastor, everything that pastor said on stage was towards me. And he talked about the heavenly father that loves you. And I had struggled for years with the love of my father that didn't love me. And I'm going, what do you mean there's a father that loves me? I didn't understand that. And he did this whole sermon on the love of the father for his children. And everything he said, I just needed to hear at that very moment. And it was the most clear I had ever felt in my entire life. There had never been a moment where I felt more clear, more heard, more loved. And when I stepped out, the pastor said, "Do you have a Bible?" I I'd never owned a Bible. I'd never owned one when I was, reading the Torah. So I said no, and he handed me a Bible, and I didn't even know what to do with it. And he said, "Well, look, there are ways you can read the Bible." He said, "You can do this, you can do that." And he gave me all the different ways to study it and read it. And he prayed with me, and I left. And that week, I read the entire Bible, the whole thing cover to cover, and it wasn't something where somebody looks at me and goes, "Wow, how are you able to do that?" It was the greatest thing I think I've ever experienced, because I had known the Old Testament. I studied the Torah, this was the sequel that I never knew was even there. I needed to read why the Old Testament pointed to the New Testament. I needed to read about the New Testament and who this Jesus was. And every time I picked it up, it was just lesson after lesson after lesson touching me, going, this is all about God's testimony to us. And this is all about God. The whole Bible is God and his story, but it's this beautiful testimony of his people and what he wants out of us. And all of a sudden I went from this prideful guy, and not guilt. I didn't go to guilt. I went from this prideful guy to, I need to do better. I need to do better and be better and show God that it's not about being a good person. It's about being his person, the one that he created. And everything just came together for me.
God demonstrated his love for us in this, that while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. The overwhelming loving kindness of the Lord is demonstrated not just in the New Testament. Actually, when you're really getting into the details of the Old Testament, you see that time and time again, God goes after people who are rebellious, demonstrates loves for them by raising up leaders and doing a lot of miraculous things for people who are often turning to other gods and perhaps even sacrificing their children to other gods. It's a love story all the way through. But you gotta really pay attention and read it a few times to get that. Hey, Christ is King. Every knee will bow. Absolutely. This is the 63rd atheist convert to Christianity. I should call this 63 and 64 though, because both him and his brother were once atheists and now profess faith in the one true triune God. That Jesus is God. He saved us who believe in him.